Everyone, Zoom participants, and Dr. Lester, take it away.
We're ready, sir. Sing with me.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, watch the proudly we hail at the twilight's glad streaming, across rocks and bright stars, through the perilous fight, over the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly stream, and the rockets grim flare, the battle thirsty air, getting through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, sailors and stars twinkle, and away, for the land and the home of our great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alan Richards has our invitation.
Pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and thank you for this club. Thank you for what it means to each of us and to this community. Pray that you'll bless this food to give us strength, that we go out and do your will in our community. Pray this in Christ's name.
Amen.
Family Rotary, an introduction of guests, Johnson.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Short list today, Family Rotary. We have two birthdays, both on the 18th of August. Michael Maddox and Bill Durden. And we have a single anniversary today. I don't see Jason Rudd back there. So he must be treating his lovely bride to lunch. So Jason and Amanda Rudd today.
He's just moved on you.
Oh, I was thinking back there. Never mind. Good deal. I'd like to welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians today. If you will, please stand when your name is called and remain standing until all guests are identified. I'd like to welcome Tammy Potter, guest of Felicia Chambers. Linda Payton, guest of Bill Shealy. Ethan Cox, guest of Ben Slingworth. Christopher King, guest of Robert Ferguson. Peyton Ware, guest of Catherine Melee. And Noah McNeil, guest of Bruce McNeil. Thank you all for being with us today.
Camp Aspen drawing, Robbie Thomas.
We're up to 555 points.
Yeah.
I'm drawing me a winner out of that basket right there. Yeah, check it real quick.
The last three digits, 811.
Yes, it is.
Hey! Come on. I promise you I'd show you a winner.
Okay.
Are you sure? Yeah, are you sure?
It's a winner.
Ace of clubs.
Oh. All right, announcements today. The only announcement I have is there's a board meeting immediately following the meeting up in the conference room. Now have the introduction of our speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Castle, and I want to introduce my very good friend and working companion and neighbor. Been involved with Dave Stock now for a number of years. He really is a fantastic guy, fantastic aviator, and a great guy to be around. So please give a warm Rotary welcome to Dave Stock.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Just want to say thank you for having me here today. I'm actually a member of the Tuesday Rotary, and so understand you guys are the singing group, and so I appreciate you all sharing that with me this morning. That was probably the #1 reason why I couldn't join your group, is because I'm a horrible singer. So I apologize for that. But I think Rob Thomas is one of your members. He actually came and spoke at our Rotary not too long ago, had a great presentation. And so I just think it's great that we can share things that are unique to each of our clubs and our community. So I just want to thank you again for being here, or for having me be here. I have 3 hats that I kind of wear in the aviation community, for the most part, at Fort Rucker, Dothan Airport, and I saw Art Morris here as well. And it's always good to see familiar faces. And so I'm going to talk to you today about what I do with a local aviation nonprofit. What I do at Fort Rucker, managing all the refuel for all the different training sites that we have around the area, as well as the flight school that we own and operate at Dothan Airport. And of course, questions. I love questions. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free throughout the presentation. I'd just love to answer any specific questions you may have. All right, so a little bit about me. About a year and a half ago, I retired from the Army after 23 years as a pilot. So we like to say that we are I'm a St. Louisan by birth, grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, but I'm an Alabamian by choice.
Oh, you show me.
That's right. Show me. That's right. Yes, sir.
All right.
So this is where we decided to make home. So we've been in the area for about 10 years now. I was the advisor to the Commanding General of Fort Rucker for about the last 8.5 years on all policies regarding aviation personnel, how many pilots we would bring in, the training process, crew model. Did that for a long time, in and out of the Pentagon. And they wanted to move me up to the Pentagon, and the family, we just love this area so much. We said, this is home. And so we chose to retire here and really just get involved in the community. And so we're really big, and we love Dothan. We've been saying that before. It was the hashtag, motto. We love Dothan. So my 2 children, one just turned 16. He's giving me a heart attack every time he closes the car door and drives off. My daughter is 12, just made her school's cheer team, and she thinks she's also 16. So that's giving me a heart attack all the time. My wife Jennifer and I have been married 20 years next month, and so I'm trying to figure out where we're going for our 20th year anniversary. But we love this area, we love the community, and my wife Jennifer, she actually runs the flight school because I am up to my eyeballs deep in everything else. So she's been a trooper. The flight school is my passion, not hers. So that causes some issues, but she's really done great with it. And so I'm going to talk about those 3 things today. It's really exciting to be here and share that with you all. So I'm going to start off with the hat that I wear at Fort Rucker. B3 Enterprises, you'll see on my shirt, we're a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business based out of Virginia, Woodbridge, Virginia. Our owner is a retired Air Force colonel. He did his last stint in the Pentagon, so he was done with that. And he started a small defense contracting business, mainly doing construction work. And so they slowly got into different projects, and they got into a larger refuel contract at the Air Force Academy. And then after they did that for a little while, they actually refueled all the planes at the Air Force Academy that the club would use. They decided to get into the business of competing for the Fort Rucker refuel contract. This is by far the largest support contract of this type out there. We have 130 unionized refuelers. So anybody in the room worked with union labor? So you know what I'm talking about. All right, so that in and of itself, I had no clue what I was getting into. I was actually, when I first retired, I was a test pilot in a union, so I saw it from that side for a very short period of time. But We have all of those challenges. In my short time since I've been the program manager for this contract, I've negotiated full collective bargaining agreements, been through a plethora of grievance meetings, and so it's real good education for me. But also, we've been able to make some real good improvements for our company and for the Fort Rucker contract. So those 130 unionized refuelers work at all the base fields, so all the major fields where the helicopters basically sleep at night, okay, those base fields. And then we have stage fields all around the Wiregrass. I'm sure you guys have seen the helicopters at different stage fields. And so we have refuelers at all of those locations providing fuel for the #1 goal of keeping students training. That's the #1 goal. So quality fuel on time so students can keep training at Fort Rucker. We have about 35 different fuel trucks, and then we have fuel system arrays in these large tanks, so that the picture on the top right of the screen there, those are the large fuel tanks that we have at these different locations. So the fuel trucks run around the fields. When they come back, we top them off, getting ready to turn back out for that next mission. And then when they're out there training at those at stage fields, they're getting topped off through our fuel arrays and our storage tanks, so we can get that fuel turned as quickly as possible. Average, somewhere between 1.6 to 2 million gallons of fuel a month. So a lot of fuel. Now we don't pay for that fuel. The government pays for that fuel. They buy it. Fort Rucker buys that from the Department of Energy when it comes in through DLA, but that fuel is purchased, it's provided to us and our trucks, and then we're responsible for maintaining very strict fuel accountability at all of our sites. So just that process alone of maintaining that fuel accountability with that much fuel, 20 different locations, 130 different people at some point throughout the week, interacting with that is quite a challenge, but we do that. We also have transient aircraft that come in and out of Fort Rucker, whether they're taking, VIPs in or out, so we provide service to them. But we also support the Dale County Sheriff's Office as well. And so their pilot will come in and out. There's a contract with Fort Rucker, and so we've been giving them service. And they also, during some high profile situations where they need to come and get some quick fuel and go back out, we support them in that aspect. So we really like supporting the local community. It's our job, to provide the fuel. The government kind of gives us our mission, but it's a very important mission. I never thought I would have been involved in refuel when I first, retired from the Army. But kind of being on this side of it, I've been an instructor pilot. And anytime you're an instructor pilot, you say, hey, these students can't train unless I'm in the seat. I'm there next to them teaching them. And then I've been on the maintenance side. And the maintainers will say, well, if this aircraft's not fixed, it's not flying. Well, I can assure you if there's no fuel, it's not flying. So I've been in all those different situations. They're all important, but it's kind of fun seeing that. Again, a lot of things going on at Fort Rucker. If you guys have any questions about the status of aircraft, things like that, I can't really speak to that. But when you look at the footprint for refuel, there's hot refuel now out at Dothan, and that helps with our training capacity. There's also hot refuel up in Andalusia, and we have people going into Troy getting fuel. So the entire community really supports the Fort Rucker flight training environment. And, we're one piece of that, but there's a lot of infrastructure that really supports it and keeps the aircraft in the air. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, but if you would, I know what hot refuel is, but I'm not sure that everyone in the room understands what hot refuel is.
Yeah, thanks, Art. Yeah, forgive me, sometimes, this stuff's like second nature, you spit it out. So hot refuel is when the aircraft is not shut down. Engines are hot, blades are turning, it is running at full power, and they pretty much land or taxi in to the fuel point. And we have refuelers with helmets on and fire retardant suits on that go out there, they hook up, they provide that fuel. Usually it's during a student swap out. So the second student to fly will get out the back, hop in the front, and get ready for those responsibilities. And then as soon as the refuel's done, that little 2 to 3 minute time frame, they're back in, they're gone, and back out training. So that hot refuel is aircraft turning, and it's a loud, noisy process. You smell like jet fuel, but it's a good smell. You can't get used to it. Thanks, sir. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I know there are different levels of training. What's the primary level that your students are in here?
So, at Fort Rucker, they've got initial training like primary, then there's instrument training, and then there's instructor pilot and test pilot training. Our refuelers are at all sites where all that training takes place. We have different levels of training that's taking place on the helicopter side. So our personnel, when they're out there supporting, you don't know if you have a day one flight school student or if you have an instructor pilot team coming in or a test pilot team. Whoever needs fuel, wherever they need it. In fact, our new contract allows any aircraft to be refueled in any location at any time. Does that answer your question, sir?
Is there combat training included?
Yes. So we don't actually at Fort Rucker, we don't do a whole lot of combat maneuvering type training. That's really saved for out at the training centers. So we have one out in California. We have one in Fort Polk. There's one in Europe. So the combat training, not so much. The basic pilot tasks, I'd say anything above just normal aircraft maneuvering and tasks would be done at one of those other training centers, not Fort Rucker. It's a great question. Any other questions? All right, so if you see a big yellow truck going down the road, they have a flashing light on top. Those are unique to the Department of Defense installation. They have to stand up like that for extra special awareness. So you shouldn't see those out at the Dothan Airport or anyplace else. So those belong to me. So if you see an issue, give me a call. We're always trying to make our operation better. All right. So then I want to talk briefly just about our aviation nonprofit that we have in Dothan. This is really such a collaborative effort by so many individuals. Mr. Bill Castleman has been a huge part of that. The late Mr. Hugh Wheelis was a significant part of that. Art Morris and the team out the Dothan Airport, huge. It's just really been a community involvement. And most folks don't realize that there is a nonprofit here that just really focuses on aviation education, but specifically with students in the area. And so I'm the president of that chapter. So PM for the Fort Rucker contract, president here. And this is it's a fun, very rewarding position that I have. The building that you see on the top of the screen on the top right, that building was actually funded completely through donations and really like grassroots funding. A lot of folks contributed to this building. It's called the Bill Castleman Aviation Education Center because the driving force behind it and the vision was really Mr. Bill Castleman. He probably holds the record in the local community for flying young eagles. A young eagle is it's a student the ages of 8 to 17 that come out with the Experimental Aircraft Association. They go on a pre-flight at the Dothan Airport. What number are you up to right now, sir? Over 1,000, I think.
The chapter itself is.
Yeah, over 1,000 for the chapter. Mr. Bill's got a ton of them. He's got all the credentials to go with that. And it's volunteer pilots, volunteer mechanics, just folks that love aviation, giving back. And we have a lot of great photos, many of that were taken by Mr. Art Morris at some of our events. But the crux of it is, there's an organization out there that's really dedicated to teaching and providing advocacy for general aviation. So the private pilots, the flight training, that type of environment. We don't really deal a whole lot with corporate flight departments or commercial, but really at the user, the community level, that's where we succeed. And so we try to have a few Young Eagle flights a year. And at these rallies, we'll have students from all across the different areas in the Wiregrass come out, and they go on a free flight, usually around the airport. So somewhere about 7 to 8 minutes, they'll hop actual airtime, but they'll hop in the airplane, they'll fly around, get to see what it's like to fly the airplane, just looking out the window and seeing, the little ants, is what they call them, their cars, but they look at all the ants. And so I'll tell you, I've had the pleasure of probably flying about 100 almost myself since I started doing this with Mr. Bill. And almost all of them have never been in an aircraft of any sort, ever. And it's hard for us to kind of grasp that nowadays with commercial aviation being what it is. But, within our community, we have a lot of students who have never been in an airplane of any sort. And just to see the excitement on their face, to be out there with them, they're really surprised to see how many swimming pools are in this area. I mean, there's like pools everywhere. So that's kind of one of the big funny things. But we take them out, all volunteer aircraft, the fuel. I mean, it's a very generous process by most of the pilots, but we also have a large ground support team that'll support them, make sure that, that they're safe, that they get briefings on what they're doing. And, everything's done above board. It's a really great program. That's just one aspect of what we do. We also give out a lot of flight training scholarships. And this year alone, through donors in the community, Mr. Mike Schmitz has been very generous with our chapter, as well as some others. We're going to give out $40,000 in flight training scholarships to students right here in the Wiregrass. So we've already given out 20,000. These are high school students, some of which just turned 16 or 17, who are flying airplanes at the Dothan Airport, and something that may have been cost prohibitive before these scholarships came out. So we're really excited to be able to do that as a chapter. Like most nonprofits, we operate on donations and volunteer support, and we've been really blessed with that. It's our goal to one day be up to maybe 10 or 15 a year that we can offer to students in the area, because once they get on that discovery flight or that Young Eagle flight and they see what aviation is all about, at that point, it's like, well, how do I do this? And it's hard to get in aviation. And so having a community like ours here in Dothan and the Wiregrass that supports students, 100% of the donations go right back to flight training scholarships. And we want to see those really change lives. So we're really excited. If you all want to be donors or participate in that, we can definitely give you the information that you need for that. But really exciting. I want to say we filled almost 50 kids at our last Young Eagle Rally. And then we have these 2 other scholarships we're going to be giving out later this summer. So a lot of stuff going on. We also host the FAA safety team meetings where they get pilots in the area that will come out, and we talk about how to avoid accidents and things like that, how to be safe in flying, just good general aviation awareness, so that we promote safety. So the chapter, again, a lot of great support from our members and doing a lot of great things in the community. Mr. Bill, did I miss anything?
No, I think it kind of gets back to Dave. Dave does have a beautiful family. So all of these things that he's involved with, he's also got this family that he's taking care of and doing a super job there too.
Thank you. Yep, but it's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding. And my daughter hops in the front seat of the airplane as much as she can, and she goes flying. And so we're happy to be able to do that. Any questions on the nonprofit? Yes, ma'am.
Not actually nonprofit. I'm just curious, how do you get signed up? If you had a ministry that wanted to get signed up for this camp, how do they go about doing that?
That's a great question.
And is it free?
Sure. So the Young Eagle rallies, they are free events where you come out. So our website is EAA1358.org, or you can just Google search EAA Young Eagles, and you can pull up the websites. They'll actually show you when the next Young Eagle rally is going to be in Dothan. They have them for the whole area, for the whole country. You just put in your zip code, and it'll kind of show you the closest one. So you can go there, you sign up. It is free. You can register your students there. Your kid's free to do that flight. We do those a few times a year, so those are free. The scholarships, and at one point in the past, we were actually sending kids up to the Auburn Aviation Summer Camp. We would do that for a week. And then we started getting enough interest in people wanting to learn to fly. We kind of changed from the Auburn Summer Camp to the flight training scholarships that are taking place right here at the Dothan Airport. But yeah, that website, EA1358.org, is a good place you can go. It's information about our chapter, about how to become a donor, as well as when the Young Eagle flights are going to be taking place. Great question. Thank you. Any other questions on the chapter? All right. Now we're going to talk about some flight training here just for a minute. So let's see if this works. I don't know if the audio is going to work or not. It's not. So this is a short clip. And I failed to mention about the audio, but we shot a commercial here out at the Dothan Airport for the flight school. As the owner and operator of the flight school, we have a lot of students from the local area that are flying with us. And part of what we really want to do is kind of let people in Dothan know if flying is something you want to do, we have that resource right here at the Dothan Airport. Sir, it's not a big deal. If it's too much trouble. It's really not. Thank you. It's okay. I appreciate it. So, we got a little bit of a clip flying over Westgate Park, flying around downtown. There's just a lot of cool things about Dothan, and I think that might have messed up the clicker now. So the flight school was something that we started about 5 years ago. We started with one airplane and one instructor, myself, and we did that at the Headland Airport. And so there were 2 airplanes at the FBO, at the fixed base operator at Dothan, and they were doing their thing, so we didn't want to interrupt that. And so we started training at the Headland Airport, and with one airplane and one instructor, and we started getting more and more students. We started getting busier, and so we finally said, if we're going to provide a first class, flight training facility, we need to do that in a larger capacity. About the same time we decided we needed to make that decision, the FBO decided that they were going to just focus on fuel and they didn't want to do flight training. And so it really worked out well that we were able to move over to Dothan Airport. And we went from 1 airplane to 5 airplanes now. We have 3 full-time flight instructors on staff. We have 2 part-time instructors, and we can train anything from private pilot all the way up to commercial multi-engine out of the Dothan Airport. So we have a number of high school students, not just in scholarships with us right now through the chapter, but a number who want to be commercial pilots that are learning to fly right here in Dothan.
What is your basic aircraft training?
Yes, sir. Great question. So we're using Piper Cherokees for our initial primary training. And then we have Piper Warriors that they go into for the latter part of their training and then for their instrument training. And then we have the Twin Comanche. So a lot of good training taking place every day. We have about 50 students enrolled right now in different phases of training, everything from commercial students to private pilot students. And so that's perfect, sir. Thank you. And so what's awesome is that, any given day, you'll have a high school student, a local doctor, physician out at the airport learning to fly. And a dedicated school with dedicated resources, facilities, just for that purpose. And so that's really done well for not only for the EAA chapter, because we have a training partner now where we can actually give scholarships to and help students get that training. But we also have a resource, Father's Day gifts, special birthdays, things. There's so many things that people are reaching out to us like, hey, can you do this? We had someone actually want to do a wedding proposal in an airplane. So all kinds of crazy stuff that we're able to do, right here in Dothan, which is really exciting for us. We've got great instructors, great staff. And sometimes people are afraid to fly. I'm not gonna lie. If you're afraid to fly, it's normal. We've had a couple of folks go out on what was going to be an awesome flight, and their stomach was not cooperating with them. And so we have ways to deal with that too. It's not pretty, but there's ways to deal with that. But a lot of fun. This picture in the bottom right of the slide, that's actually one of our young Eagles that was sponsored by the EAA chapter on his solo day. And as a Dothan High senior, he'd come out after school and learn to fly on the weekends. And in fact, he could not actually drive a car. He did not have his driver's license yet. That's kind of a new thing with millennials, I think. There's not, parents are chauffeuring him around a little bit, but he was flying an airplane before he was driving a car. Doing well.
How many hours of training before they can solo?
So there's not a minimum, it's just proficiency level. They typically are about the 15 to 20 hour point before they solo. The Dothan Airport, it's a great place to train because it's a little complicated, and we really developed good pilots. It's complicated because at Headland or Ozark, you don't have to talk to a tower. There's really not a weather frequency you can get information from. You just kind of say, hey, this is me, and I'm going here. Just do it. Kind of scary sometimes. But at the Dothan Airport, we have great facilities, great air traffic control personnel. And so we actually teach our pilots to be more like commercial professional pilots from the very beginning on how to get their clearances, on how to check the weather, coming in and out of a busy airport. There's a lot of King Airs that fly out there with CAE, doing the Army fixed wing training. There's corporate jets coming in and out, so it really gives our pilots that experience in a busy environment from day one. And so they're just used to it. And in fact, there's a lot of places where people will train, they're afraid to come to airports like ours because they don't want to worry about watching out for Delta or Army, Army training, but our pilots are used to it. So somewhere around 15 hours, we get out of the airplane and say, good luck. I'll tell you, the one thing they always say is, man, this thing really climbs when you get out of it. So I don't know if that's a fat joke or whatever, but it is true that small airplane, you kick out, 10% of the weight, or so, it climbs a lot better. But, knock on wood, we've never had an incident or an accident out here. We have really well-trained, well-experienced flight instructors. We still get nervous every time we get out of an airplane with a student, but they do well. And the whole environment that we have here at Dothan is really just conducive to this training. So we're really happy with that. We do have the twin engine airplane we just added this spring. So part of that was our growth plan, get the basic stuff going, and then adding the twin. There's a big demand in the commercial pilot market right now for pilots. And so we're trying to cater towards some of our Army pilots who are retiring, want to go to the airlines, they can come out and do their multi-engine training and get that, and do that right here at home in Dothan. So the flight school has been really great. We're really excited about it. Hard to tell in this picture, but the top right corner, we did not plan it, but Delta had just taken off right behind all those airplanes on the ramp. So just pushed them out there, try to get a photo, and picture perfect Delta right in the middle of the photo. Could not have timed that any better. Dothan really, if you have not been out to the airport, it's a really great, community epicenter, really. And if you look at any major community, around the country, and I've been to a lot of different places, they all start with a strong airport. The investment, the growth, it all comes from having that capability, and we've got a good one here in Dothan. So if you haven't been out there lately, I'd encourage you to come on out and take a look, not just the flight school, but just at everything that's out there. Our EAA facility is actually on ground donated by the airport. So the airport gave us the ground, gave us a lease for that ground, and then we were able to build that facility. So without the airport partnering with EAA, without the airport being supportive of the flight school, a lot of the things that we do every day to help, our community wouldn't be possible. So any questions about the flight school? You guys had some good ones.
When a student solos, are there any traditions? I remember as a kid, whatever shirt that person was wearing got cut out in the back and hung up on the wall with the date of the solo flight.
That's right. Yes, sir. So that is an old tradition. And so if you think back to early airplanes, a lot of them were tandem seating. So you had someone sitting in the front, usually the student in the front and the instructor in the back. And so we didn't have these awesome Bose noise canceling headsets back then like we have today. All right. It was literally just like shouting and trying to get their attention, pulling on the shirt, trying to get their attention. All right. So now we want to keep that tradition alive. When the instructor's in the back seat pulling on the shirt to get their attention, that's because you need the instructor there. Well, when you solo, we're saying we don't need that instructor back there yanking on your shirt anymore. We got this. And so on solo day, and what he's holding up in that bottom right picture there, he's holding up the shirt tail. Kind of hard to see, but that shirt tail, we cut it off. And we tell him, like, make sure you don't wear like Sunday best shirt. That thing's getting cut up. And we've had one or two forget. Like, sorry, man, go buy a new shirt. You only solo one time. And they all do it. And it's the nastiest, sweaty shirt you've ever touched in your life. Not just from the heat, but from the stress of the event. So that is a gross job of a flight instructor, is pulling that sweaty shirt and cutting it off. But we cut it off, we let it dry out for about a day or two. And then we put the date, the airplane they were flying in, the student's name, and we trade them a really nice plaque and a frame certificate. We trade them that for the shirt tail. And then we hang that shirt tail up inside the flight school. So if you were to walk into the flight school and you look down the hall, you would see a number of shirt tails all the way down of people who have soloed an airplane right here because of the school. So pretty exciting. We like keeping that tradition alive, but I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a fun part of it. You know, we also like to throw water on them and other types of little hazing things to make it important. But we try to make it a family event. We encourage family to come out because there is Delta service there. There's some special security precautions we have to take, but we go out there and we host the families. We want to make sure they're present to kind of be there as a part of those events. And we've got a lot of folks, you know, Jeff Coleman's one of our students. He's out there learning to fly an airplane. We've got tons of time in airplanes, but he's flying. He's already soloed. He's almost getting ready to finish up. We have a lot of other folks who are, you know, proud Dothan residents out there flying. So it's just really cool to kind of have them and their families come out and support them and then check something off the bucket list. One thing I didn't fail to mention is I brought Steve Tyler with me today. Steve is my deputy PM, so I couldn't do that at the beginning. So Steve does a great job for us out at Fort Rucker. You know, he was a test pilot and a standardization pilot for M1 Flight Support, the maintenance contractor, before coming over to join us at V3. And he's all about making my life easier on a daily basis. So glad to have him come out here as well. We got a really great team, whether it's at the flight school or at V3 or out at EAA at the chapter facility. There's just a lot of great folks in this community that we try to support, and we just appreciate what the community does for us. So this is a picture of, this is actually Mr. Bill's old airplane. I've owned probably about 10 different airplanes, but when Mr. Bill was getting tired of this one, he asked me if I wanted it, and so I bought this airplane from him. But one thing that was always nice about Mr. Bill is the most generous person when it comes to taking people flying. And so if you want to go flying in an airplane, that is a Cirrus SR-22. We'll take you flying. It's got a parachute that's built into it, really nice, just awesome airplane. So we just want to encourage people to learn about aviation, to get out there and see what it's like, and find a way to kind of support that, because without your support, without the community, you know, we can't keep doing what we're doing. So any other questions before I close? Yes, in the back.
For someone that was interested in getting started with flight lessons, what kind of costs are you looking at average?
Okay, great question. So we used to say it was about 10 grand before the fuel prices like tripled on us this past year. So the price of fuel right now is pretty high. We're still seeing it in somewhere in the 10 to 12,000 range. The nice thing about that, it's not all up front. You know, we have pay as you go, but it really is dependent upon each individual person. We have some folks that just get it. I mean, like right off the bat. And we have some folks that just need a little bit more time. Everyone's different. So the FAA says you have a minimum of 40 hours you have to complete, and then that 40 hours is broken down by certain tasks and whatnot. But somewhere around that 10,000 to 12,000 range is what can be expected. You know, right now there's a lot of tools like online ground school you can use to help reduce some costs and help your studying. So if it is something you want to do, you can spread that out over time, but somewhere in that $10,000 to $12,000 range is what you can expect. Yes, sir.
Is there a civil air control unit?
There is. In fact, it's right next door to our EAA building. Yep. So right down by the air traffic control tower, there is a civil. I think they have 2 airplanes out here right now.
What do they do?
Couldn't tell you. Art, I would defer that one to Art.
Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary of the United States Air Force, and what they do, they have cadet programs organized. I was a Civil Air Patrol cadet when I was in high school, and you join. It's somewhat like Boy Scouts from that perspective, but you also have an opportunity as you're learning about aviation and you're learning about actually some military things. Then you have an opportunity to fly with them, fly missions with them. Ultimately, they fly a lot of missions. They used to do some marijuana spotting, but primarily what they would are organized for is search and rescue type missions. And they used to perform that role in World War II, as a matter of fact, when they were first organized. So, and they still serve that role today. Great organization, and it's a great way too for teenagers that cannot otherwise afford the flight lessons or learn how to fly. They can join Civil Air Patrol and get some community service, and then they get a reduced cost on flight instruction for their aircraft. So that's another way to learn flight.
Thank you, Art. That's good. Yes, sir.
I don't know whether, you probably know the answer, I know Art does, but I asked him about it. There's a large Air Force plane that flies around over my house all the time, and I understand it's practice targeting. Would you explain that, or maybe get Art to tell what it is?
Well, so they do have AC-130 gunships that are based down along the coast. So anytime we go out, military aircraft go out training, there's certain opportunities for training. So if you look at the different types of aircraft, they have different mission sets. I can't tell you if they're actually targeting you or your house, I'm sure they're not. But I have heard a rumor that they like to use Lake Yapala because there's actually boats that are moving along. And so, part of that, they don't have live ammunition, of course, when they're doing those types of things. But, part of using your systems and testing your systems to make sure they work. Funny story, at the flight school, we actually got an email from a local resident, and they said, we'd like to talk to you about all the helicopter training that's going over our house every day. And they thought it had something to do with us at the airport. And so I wrote back and I said, I'm sorry, man, that's not us. We just do small little Piper Cherokees. That's the sound of freedom coming out of Fort Rucker. And so that's not something that we have an impact on. But the military does need to train. Where they train, how they train, it just kind of depends on different platforms. But I have heard Lake Eufaula is an area, because it's pretty close. They can hop up here, they can kind of fly around this area and just practice, engaging those systems. You don't want to wait to train like that until you're overseas in combat. So I have heard they've used that a little bit. Good question, yes, sir.
You use all prop, don't you? No jets.
That's correct, yes, sir. We are all prop piston airplanes, and they do a good job for us.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, this may be a little off, but we've actually having a little conversation about flight. I was asking a question about it. So I'm just curious, and it may not be out of your range or whatever. But so the people that fly the bigger planes like Delta, Southwest, Spirit, those kind of planes, I was asking, do they start here and work their way up? Or do they go to another whole different type of training? Cause like sometimes when we landing, the landing is really cool. Sometimes, I'm like, whoa. So I just be wondering, who's training who?
That's a fair question. That's a fair question. So first off, so I've got thousands of flight hours. Anytime you can defy gravity and then walk away at the end, you're doing good, right? So for starters, that's good. I've got thousands of hours in airplanes and helicopters, and you're always trying to do better in the next lane. But I will tell you, our flight instructors, they come out, right out of a flight academy or right out of our school, and they start flight instructing to build their hours, because you have to have so many hours to go to airlines. So if you have military background, they have a reduced hour requirement. If you don't have that, or if you did not come out of a school like Auburn's program or another formal aviation school, you have about 1,500 hours you have to build before you can ever go to the airlines. And part of those hour requirements were increased due to crashes, fatal crashes, Colgan Air and other things. So they do train on smaller things, and then when they move up, and we have one flight instructor of ours, he's probably going to be leaving us in a number of months. He's going to be an airline pilot, no doubt about it. He's going to have to go to new training specific to those airplanes, and most of that's simulator based. They don't actually get into a real aircraft for that flight until there's passengers on board, but they have check airmen and other pilots that are part of that process to make sure it's being done safely. But I'll tell you, sometimes you come in the land and you have a really strong crosswind coming across, and you're doing everything you can, and sometimes you're just happy you got that thing on the ground. So whether it was like landing like a feather or just being like get on the ground and saying thank you, the pilots feel that way sometimes too. So the weather always gets a vote. The weather's always out there kind of working against you. If you get those calm, nice, smooth days, that you're happy, but sometimes they're not. Even us really experienced pilots, you got some bad landings. You just take them and you're happy if the airplane's not broken. Good question. All right. Well, if that's all, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to be here again today, and Mr. Bill for inviting me. And any questions at all after the fact, please feel free to let me know.
people just what kind of guy this is. When Hugh Willis passed away, Dave's our chapter president, and he said, we've got to do something to recognize Hugh. And so I talked with the family, talked with Tripp, and basically there's a tradition that goes back to actually World War I. You talk about when an aviator dies, he's gone west. So I talked with Tripp and I said, okay, Dave has agreed to take the Cirrus that he has talked about. And there's going to be a ceremony there at the park in the middle of the Highlands. And, at a set time, and said, okay, Dave Stock will do a low pass with the Cirrus and climb out to the west. Is that okay with you guys? And they thought it was a great idea. That's what Dave did, in spite of the fact that there was some challenging weather, but everything was legal, and we did it, and it really made it was a nice, I think, a real good remembrance for you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, guys, for that informative program. I mentioned when I sat down up here, my dad loved to fly on several planes, and I spent my early years on Sunday afternoon sitting at the airport listening to World War II pilots and Korean pilots tell war stories. And then every pilot has a few war stories of that he wished the worst thing had happened to him, that he had a rough life. I'd like to thank our guest today. Next week, our speaker is Dale Goodwin, our district governor. And if there's nothing else, let's all stand for the four-way test. Of the things we think, we say, or do,
Is it true? Is it fail all our concern? Will it do goodwill, veneration? Will it be beneficial?
go and serve your people well.